You are listening to a Dynamicworksproductions podcast. This show is available on iTunes, Stitcher Radio Network, and many, many more podcast services around the world. You can find all our content, music, videos, books, podcasts, and more on our website, www.dynamicworksproductions.com. Have questions, comments, or concerns for us? Head on over to the social tab on www.dynamicworksproductions.com if you'd like to talk to us. Now, on with the show. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fork in Your Ear podcast. I'm your host, as always, author, podcaster, and gamer, Tim K. Trotter. Joining me today, as always, is the one, the only, the fooiest of Nates, Nate Foo. And special guests tonight, to evening, one of those is comic book writer Mike Tanner and comic book artist Don Nugyen.
Thank you for having us on. We're excited to be here tonight, whenever.
Exactly. So we're doing a guest show this week, Fork Fam, and our esteemed guests are going to pimp their forthcoming wares. So take it away, guests.
Hey, everybody. Don and I are here to talk about our Kickstarter comic book running through May 9th. It is called Battle, Grapple, Rebel. It is a science fiction pro wrestling comic book. This is issue 1. It's a fantastic book. If you've ever wondered what professional wrestling would be like in something like the Star Wars universe, and then mix in a little Blade Runner, this is Battle, Grapple, Rebel. It's a underdog story about a young man who just wants to be the best pro wrestler he can, and how the world is either working against him or he's finding a way to make the world work for him.
Oh, wow. That was fantastic.
I try. I've been honing it over the last few weeks.
I was going to say, the way you did it was so Greg Smith-like.
Not to talk smack. Greg learned how to pitch from me. I feel like I'm not telling tales out of school. But when we're tabling together, Greg knows who's the one who gives the pitch, and that's me.
I think I just heard a gauntlet drop.
Yeah, he did. He threw both down.
He can't even pick up the gauntlet I just dropped. Oh! Hey, Greg, I love you. Greg and I have known each other for 20 years. We are very old men.
Right on.
God, over 20 years. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I see by our collective grays here that 20-year relationships are not becoming uncommon for us.
No.
Yeah, it's nuts. I think when you guys messaged me to get on the show, I was a little delayed because I was hosting I don't even know what year it is really, but I was hosting a Eagle Scout reunion for my patrol, and it was just like, man, I have hair in this group. That's so crazy. So, all right. So, Don, why don't you talk a little bit? Obviously, we're an audio podcast. Why don't you talk a little bit about the art for this particular project? How did you get involved? Have you known Mike a long time? What drew you to the specific mix of wrestling and sci-fi comic book?
I'm definitely a kid who grew up like 80s and 90s, so those things are right up my alley. I've known Michael a few years now. We met through a mutual friend, our friend Tyler from the Grand Geek Gathering. We met in San Diego. And 1 year before the pandemic had hit us, the year before the pandemic had hit us, we were lounging around a hotel pool, enjoying burgers and drinks, I believe. And Michael goes, "Hey, I have this idea I think you would be good for. Let me just pitch it to you real quick. What do you think about wrestling meets Star Wars?" And I was like, "I'm in." And that's all he had to say. And then he sent me the script. I think it was like maybe a week or two after that.
Nice.
And it blew my mind.
Oh,
and
really?
I was like, I think I just struck gold because this is ingenious. Yeah, the script he sent was incredible, and I really believe in this project. Anybody out there who is listening, if you grew up on wrestling, if you grew up loving things in space, I grew up, Battlestar Galactica, Flash Gordon, Star Wars, Star Trek. I didn't discriminate with those fandoms. I just, whatever was out there, I was like, let's just give it, just give it to me so I can take it in. And I just loved it. And I think if you're a fan of those things, if you're a fan of, WCW, NWA, NWO, WWF before they got sued and became WWE, AEW, you're gonna enjoy this book because not only is it about their, I've been pitching it personally as imagine if you took kayfabe and you mashed up with Battlestar Galactica or Star Trek. You basically get to see a little bit of the curtain pulled back, and then Mike just crafted this incredible story that is really the hero's journey. So not only can you just read it as a casual fan, but you get the nuance if you are a wrestling fan, if you are a sci-fi genre fan, and that was the approach. So he showed it to me, and then the artwork, I felt like it really meshed with my style. I love drawing superhero stuff. I'm a sketch card artist for Marvel Upper Deck, obviously. So that is my milieu. That is my wheelhouse. I think we really brought it together. And then Dave Wheeler came in, laid out some fantastic inks and letters. So kudos to him. And he's involved in AEW and WWE wrestling with doing designs and stuff. And you can see his artwork over there. So, we get that love and we're showing it as fans. And Michael's like one of the most knowledgeable wrestling fans I've ever met. I'm like a casual fan. Like I, as a kid, just loved watching it on TV. And Michael unfortunately ruined my dream by telling me wrestling isn't real.
Sorry.
But yeah, it was one of those things, I just, he had me at the first elevator pitch sentence and I was like, this sounds amazing. And I believe anybody who's picked it up, we are currently at 87 backers right now, trying to get to 100, which will get the book in color. But yeah, for those 87 on board, you guys are in for a real treat. And for the rest that are about to jump on, we can't wait to show it to you. And we think you're going to love the previews if you just hop on the page and check it out.
Nice. Nate, as the as I had mentioned to our guests, I am not in the wrestling wheelhouse, but sci-fi is definitely my wheelhouse. I hope you understood what some of the things are that they said.
Yes, I understood all of those acronyms as another elder statesman that cut my teeth on WWF, before the World Wildlife Federation decided to.
See, now that part I remember.
Forgive that panda.
Right.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So that's amazing. And you sent us a small deck here with your art, and I can definitely see how it would very much lend to the style that this book seems to be putting out. So how did you arrive on this mind meld of mixing sci-fi with wrestling? Because I mean, most people don't take wrestling seriously because sorry to break the immersion, it isn't real. It's what a lot of people lovingly call male soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now, with the WWE, AEW, back in our day, Don, can you remember there was a point where it's like you didn't really think it was fake. Yeah, it was a little dramatized, but it still seemed like it was still founded in some reality as much as you could, having some of the characters that were there. But it's definitely extravagant now. How did you get to this point, Mike, where this is what I want to do with the joining of those?
Well, it's funny. I was quite a few years ago now. I went to lunch with a friend of mine who, for a very short time, was a pro wrestler. He trained as a pro wrestler, and I think he maybe did one or two matches. But very early on in his training career, he took a move wrong and it knocked out his front teeth. And that's when he decided, he's like, this is not for me. I do not want to do this. I do not love this enough to damage my body in these ways. So he kind of hung it out, but he loved wrestling. And we were at lunch and we were just talking about, because I found it fascinating that he trained as a wrestler.
Mhm.
And he had kind of this lineage of like people he trained under, trained with some of the guys, AEW guys like Christopher Daniels. He trained with a guy who trained with Christopher Daniels. So there's like
Mhm.
this connected lineage there. And he's also a huge Star Wars fan. And so we were just like chatting, and I just thought, I was like, what would pro wrestling be like in the Star Wars universe? And really, pro wrestling, not the way it would normally be portrayed in sci-fi, or if you take a kind of pro wrestling idea and move it into any other genre, it's always treated as a real combat sport where
Mhm.
they like, it's gladiatorial, where they're actually trying to kill each other. And there is a place for those kind of stories, but there's also a lot of interesting stuff you can mine from treating it as pro wrestling, as a performance, as one of the most unique forms of performance art there
Mhm.
is, and putting it in a sci-fi setting. Like, what is professional wrestling where these are athletes portraying characters, doing choreographed combat for the entertainment of an audience in space? And that's really where it kind of grew out of thinking, well, what does that mean? And in relation to professional wrestling as being a reflection of pop culture, like, and culture in general, it informs and is informed by the culture it exists in. So what would that look like? And that's where the story really came from.
Very nice.
So, from the sci-fi aspect, because that's me, um, what you mentioned Blade Runner, you mentioned Star Wars. Is there anything else that inspired this particular take? Obviously, there's the wrestling aspect of it too, but is there anything else from sci-fi that particularly inspired that fusion?
There, it I didn't realize this at the time, but in hindsight, I realized that I was highly influenced by a really good early 90s B movie sci-fi movie called Arena.
Okay.
Uh, but it's one of the
Wow.
sci-fi things where it does treat it as an actual gladiatorial combat between people, but it takes place on a space station,
Okay.
and the premise is that there's like a galactic MMA, even though they didn't have the word for it, a galactic MMA like federation where alien species compete against each other in combat. And the part of the premise is that humans haven't been competitive in that sport because humans are weak flesh bags, and they're going up against aliens who have like four arms or like exoskeletons. And so it's not, humans haven't really been competitive, but there's, the main character is the one human who maybe has the gumption and the skill to do it. It's a really good B movie, has a lot of Star Trek actors in it.
Hmm.
And that kind of idea, I wasn't in my head when I was writing it, but I loved that movie so much. I watched it so much as a kid that I'm like, oh yeah, that is kind of informed by it. But also, it treats it as it's real, and I'm going for pro wrestling, not actual gladiators.
That's so interesting. Like that like popped off like a memory of like I want to say it was either 2000s animated Justice League or maybe the 90s Superman animated series, and there was like a thing where they like captured Superman and there was a space station and they were like making him fight almost like Hulk on Scar.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, huh. Like, and the more you kept talking about it, I was like, oh man, I really remember that episode now that
Right.
I know.
They even touched on that kind of thing in the what was it, the third Thor movie?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Ragnarok.
Right.
And I think a lot of how I imagine you guys also are kind of in like the age crossover that we're part of that generation, and I feel like we grew up trying to just grab as much media out there as possible that had to be deal with sci-fi genres or even like
sure.
fight and action movies. Like everybody was geared towards these things. Like like I love the Alien franchise.
Sure.
Mhm.
Me
Some
too.
some more than others. Star Wars, obviously, Star Trek, both in terms of television syndication properties,
Sure.
and then the Next Generation was like my big thing growing up as a kid. And I think all these elements exist in the ether for us and have just sort of become ingrained in our like pop culture DNA. And I feel like Michael has done an amazing job pulling these elements in and putting it into the story. Like really, when you guys read this, I feel like I'm just here to try to do as much justice to his script as possible in this instance because it was just a joy to read. Like I can't emphasize that enough. And I feel like once this first issue hits, you're not only going to get pulled into the sports entertainment aspect of wrestling as we've come to know it, especially in like the last 15, 20 years or so, but more so, you're going to get that behind the scenes personal life peek at the world at large that he's created and crafted, and also the political elements that are involved, which is where that idea of like Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars like
Mhm.
really pulls in and ties it all together for me.
Okay. So a question on the art then, Don, in looking through what you just sent over actually, your kind of art style, I don't remember the artist off the top of my head, but it kind of reminds me of the Spider-Gwen comic book where it's like this kind of actiony, but there's like a somewhat limited color palette on purpose to make the colors
Mhm.
like pop. And it seems like that's kind of like just like I mean, that's obviously your style since that's what's on your what's on your web page there. Like, what draws you to that kind of style for yourself as an artist?
When I was really little, I grew up in like the image age of comics, and like Jim Lee
High
was
five.
like always tops for me, and like McFarlane, and just how like wrought their line work and ink work was. But at
Yeah.
some point, I realized because I got back into comics like maybe about 10 years ago,
Okay.
somewhere around there. And I realized that's not the style that is for me in terms of how
Sure.
I want to draw stuff. And I wanted to simplify a lot more. When I got back into comics, it was, I randomly had been away from comics for a really long time. And I walked into a shop, and on the shelf at the same time were Umberto Ramos. Umberto's fantastic, Chris Machado, and Scotty Young. And those three artists, like in terms of how cartoony and simple and elegant their line work was, that's what pulled me back into comics. And it was like then and there, I was like, I want to get back into like trying to draw comics and like make comics. And I realized that's where my style lies. And for me, it's about the economy of line work
Mm,
and trying to make it simple but still direct and able to tell the story
sure.
and execute the sequentials properly so that people can just see it, because that's ultimately what we want to do in comics, especially on the art side, is to be able to tell the story without the words. The words is what brings in the nuance and the texture. Even though you're like, oh, the art and the background and all the details bring in the texture, it's the added layer of the narrative and of the dialogue that really adds the depth and the character to the comic. And hopefully we've executed that well and we've done justice. And especially for wrestling fans out there, I feel like we spent time trying to figure out how to put moves on the page so that you can see how the players that are involved, the wrestlers that are involved, call it in the ring. And I feel like like in terms of how Michael has created the characters and laid them out, you're gonna see, and what I brought to the table in terms of art, I think you're gonna see a lot of influences of wrestlers that we grew up with and loved, whether they be baby faces or heels. And those characters flip too, and we get to see a little sneak peek and like bits and pieces. And my artwork is very much the same way. I love saying that I wear my influences on my sleeve. So if you look at my art, you're gonna hopefully get drawn back into a bunch of artists that you grew up and loved. Whether that be like John Romita or Steranko or even the modern guys or like the '90s guys. So hopefully you see. I try to just swagger jack people that I love.
Swagger
And
Jack. That's a word and a
yeah,
half.
and hopefully you get to see some of that line work and some of that influence in how I execute stuff. And then on top of that, Dave Wheeler just brings in these like really gritty, expressive inks, and I feel like it really carries through and captures the mood of the story. and the world that Michael has built for us. So yeah, I'm so proud of this project, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And we're already funded, so thank you everybody who's jumped on board to help us out. Now we can just get this thing in color. I think it's going to look just killer.
Nice. So I have a question on that now that because I've done more than a few podcasts with Greg Smith and Travis, and really diving into how the actual production process of comic books go. So for Mike's script, is it does he have like just tons of directions on every single panel, or does he leave like a little bit of like free space for you to be like, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing like a kick or something here or something like that for you to intuit like, oh, maybe this would be better? Or do you go back and forth with him, or or is it more like Mike than Don in the sequence of production?
He's placed a lot of trust in me, I feel like, with what he's put on the page. And he does have some stuff where I actually had to spend some time looking up things. Like he wrote down a dragon leg screw. And like I said, I'm a casual fan. I know, we all know climbing up the top rope, laying down a leg drop or an elbow drop, or like a DDT or a suplex. But the dragon leg screw is something I actually had to look up, and I had to watch videos of how it was done and how the move was executed, and then in my mind rotate those characters so that we could show you how it's being called in the ring.
Right. So there's almost some like choreography aspect to it.
Yeah, you definitely have to deal with the choreography, and that was, I feel like maybe it's just me personally because I don't read a ton of wrestling comics, but the ones that I flip through, you're missing that because, like Michael said, in terms of a lot of stories and how wrestling stories are told, it's usually like over the top wrestling comics that are like it sort of leans towards that gladiatorial combat side of it, where it's like, oh, these players are out for blood, like that's how it's going. Sure. But here we're actually like, this is the process of wrestling that he's put on the page, which is fascinating to me. It's like, oh, here's the kayfabe, here's how they call it in the ring, and we're trying to show that. And I think it's just a really unique way of doing it, because even in WWE comics, they lean into that kayfabe. They lean into, oh, this is real, and these are the conflicts that we're having between each other as characters right now. And here we get that, but we also get the depth of what it's like to have to practice and execute these moves. Because wrestling, if you think about it, there is so much athleticism and just planning that's involved sometimes. And at another point in time, it also is just like jazz, where wrestlers do have to call it in the ring sometimes. Like something may go wrong, they have to adjust, and it's on the fly, which is incredible to me. It's like that's such an amazing thing to be that extemporaneous, that spontaneous, and just jump in and do it like that.
Yeah, it's really amazing. This, like I said earlier, it is the most unique form of performance art, because it's athleticism, it's also improv, it's choreography, so it's close to dance in that way. It's fascinating, and that there isn't a bog standard across the board. Like, you will have matches called in the ring, you will have matches that are planned out step by step every moment, and it can be different depending on the wrestlers involved, depending on what the importance of the match is, what who's involved. Like, celebrity matches are usually planned out step by step, and some are called in the ring. Like, I from what I understand, the recent WrestleMania with Jake Paul is that most of it was planned, but there was some room for some improvisation in there as well.
Right.
And then you have things like Bam Bam Bigelow versus Lawrence Taylor from WWF so many years ago. Everything was planned, because you couldn't. Like, Lawrence Taylor had no idea what he was doing, and he was gassed within
Mike
2
Tyson
minutes.
being a ref. That was, you definitely have to make sure you stay in your lane.
Yep.
And there's that also that sense of risk and danger that's involved. Beyond the athleticism, it's like these moves have to incorporate safety measures. Like, they have ways of protecting the neck, protecting the head when it comes to these flips and like turns and twists, which, again, I had to spend time watching all these videos and doing deep dives. I'll tell Michael, it's like I blew like 2.5 hours just watching like old Stone Cold Steve Austin clips, because I was like, I have to do this research.
And it's still, again, it's performative and it's athletic, and it still has to be convincing. So right. So you've got these high volume moves where someone's flipping you over, and it's like, you've got to respect the safety involved, but you still got to sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, that must be a fun aspect of doing research for the project.
Yeah.
looking
It was so
at
tough.
all the old stuff and whatnot. For yourself, Mike, in terms of quote unquote research, are you researching, or are you just pulling from just your long history of love of the sport and obviously sci-fi and all that sort of stuff?
It's like Don was saying, I do have a big background in wrestling from being like a lifelong fan.
Okay.
But I also I did a lot of research. I read a lot of books. I read 3 books. I don't know if it's 3 a lot, but I read 3 books. And I listened to a lot of podcasts about the business of wrestling to kind of learn as much as I can. And since this first issue looks to be happening, since we're funded, and if we get to do the other, it's planned for 6 issues. If we get to do the other 6, I plan on doing a lot more research and a lot more kind of deep divey kind of stuff to make sure the things that I'm doing are correct, but also in putting it in a sci-fi universe, I get to make up my own stuff as well. But the key is not having it read wrong to people who do know like what it should be. I can be creative, but I can't be inauthentic. I guess that's the best way to phrase it.
Sure. Did we lose Don?
I
Yeah,
think he's
I
still
think-
Is
here.
he
I think
still
my
here?
app crashed twice.
Oh,
Okay, well, we still have your audio,
The
so
recording on your
Okay.
end crashed?
Yeah, no, Skype just went down. It just crashed. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
we will recover and we will move on.
yeah, I'll figure it out in post.
Put the pad back on the turnbuckle and let's keep going.
Yeah.
The look of confusion on Tim's face.
Yeah, I have no idea what those words or terms mean.
Words? I'm sure every time we say kayfabe, Tim is just like, "What are they talking about?"
Yeah.
I'll
did
be
you guys
like, man,
define
if you had
kayfabe already?
said, if you had said Lars or CIC or any of the other sci-fi lingo, I'm there.
So for those who don't know,
Yeah,
kayfabe is the term used to describe something that's happening in the wrestling universe, I guess.
Okay.
So in kayfabe, Stone Cold Steve Austin hated his boss Vince McMahon. In reality, Stone Cold Steve Austin probably actually kind of hated Vince McMahon, but it's it's the line between this is the show versus this is reality, and kayfabe is the term used to describe it.
What on earth
there's
would
been a
the
lot of
derivation be of kayfabe?
that's the thing is I've heard different things over the years. I don't think anyone knows for sure. I believe the most recent kind of widely agreed upon is that it's kind of a I forget what the term is for, kind of a bastardization of a Yiddish term from vaudeville.
Oh, okay. That makes a little bit more sense considering wrestling.
Yeah, like from the
Yeah.
Carney background.
Yeah, strongman, all that stuff.
What I heard originally was that it was a shortened form for Mary Kay Cosmetics. Mary Kay was last name was Fabe. So
Okay.
kayfabe meant like the makeup, like the fake
Sure.
putting on the makeup. But
Yeah.
I that's what I originally heard, and then someone told me that was the dumbest thing imaginable, and that's not what it is.
I don't know. I
not
believe
the
you.
origin.
I'm just sitting over.
It's one of those things that obviously when I was told that I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know what Mary Kay's real last name was. I always assumed it was Kay, but if it was Fabe, sure, Mary Kay Fabe.
So basically,
kayfabe?
it's the art of the story.
Yeah.
Yes. And kayfabe is dead. Once it became widely acknowledged that the show is like that pro wrestling is predetermined and it's not, they're not really trying to kill each other. The idea is kayfabe is dead. Because it was so much where like the wrestlers lived the characters and lived the storylines to the point where, in the old days, if you were a babyface wrestler, you couldn't be seen with a heel wrestler out in public because that was breaking kayfabe. And the audience would be like, well, it must be fake. These two guys are supposed to be hating each other, and here they are having a beer. Like, so it's the heightened reality of like they are always in character. The storyline is always going. And in this modern age, there's just no way that could be maintained.
Right. I actually have a story where at a local restaurant down the road from me, I'm here in Southern California, walk in and I'm probably 16 at the time, walking through the restaurant, and here's Hulk Hogan having a beer with Jake the Snake Roberts when I just watched them the week before, drop a leg and it was, I walk up and I go, "How are you two sitting here?" And they're like,
we're trying to work it out.
We're trying to work it out.
There's a great story. I wish I remembered the wrestlers involved, but it's kind of a famous story from like the late 70s, early 80s, I think, like Southern wrestling, where there was a babyface wrestler who was having like a barbecue at his house with like other wrestlers, and a heel that he was feuding with in real life, they were friends. He invited the heel over because it's just supposed to be guys in the business, in the know for this barbecue. But the wrestlers like in-laws showed up unexpectedly, and so they had to create like this whole story of the babyface and the heel getting into an argument at the party and be like, why are you at my house? You're trying to ruin my barbecue. And the heel being like, I'm here to mess with you. All right, I'm leaving. And had to make this huge show about how like they weren't actually hanging out, and the heel came over to mess with the babyface at home.
That's amazing.
And the in-laws were like, wow, he must really hate you to like come here on, not at a match. She's like, yeah, he's a bad guy. He's a real bad guy. And so those are like great stories from a time that just does not exist anymore, where they had to live the part 24/7.
And let's see, Tim, you probably don't know what a baby face and a heel is then, right?
Thank you. I was sitting here, I was like, yo.
I feel like context
I gotta
tell you, right?
You probably have.
I know there's a show called Heels that Stephen Amell, who was the Arrow, is on because he likes wrestling. That's what I know.
and yeah, man,
but please enlighten me.
So a babyface is a good guy wrestler, and a heel is a bad guy wrestler.
Oh,
because you would have like the baby face, like the sweet young guy. Like our main character in Battle Grapple Rebel, Spin Kilter, he's a baby face.
Okay.
He's just a good old. He just wants to do a good job. And his main rival is a wrestler named Stellar Debris, who's a heel. He's a cocky heel. And there's different like types of baby faces and heels within that. So there's like chicken shit heel is like the heel who's a coward, who will like run away from the fight but attack you from behind. Then there's a monster heel who is just like an unstoppable monster who like tears through his opponents. There's like I forget the term, like meat and potatoes baby face. Was it? It's it's not quite that, but it's basically that, or like a corn-fed, just kind of like a good old boy baby face.
Like Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah, I was gonna say Hacksaw. And then you have your
learning
beefcakes.
So much today.
Beefcake baby faces.
Yeah. I that's what I figured. There are gonna be people out there that don't necessarily know these terms or into wrestling, but at the end of the day, like if you look at the comic, it really is just that like blue collar workhorse underdog story, hero's journey that is really gonna pull you in. And I think, like I said, Michael's crafted a really good story, and it just happens to have the elements of wrestling and sci-fi mashed together, which is incredible. Because those, I mean, as a kid, that would have been my jumping off point. Like, you're going to put wrestling in space? I'm in.
Right.
And I think there are going to be a lot of people out there that are just are going to get a kick out of this and get a laugh and are going to get pulled into the drama. And I can't wait for you to see it. And the drama is on all fronts, because we're talking about not just the wrestling aspect. Michael has created an amazing coach in Coach Nuna, and he's got Cornetto Inget, who is like this manager guy that always pulls from a bunch of different managers into one character, and I feel like that's executed, and there's just some great comedic moments involved in that. But then on the other side, once you step outside of the gym, once you step outside of the ring, you get thrown into what is elements of sci-fi that we were talking about, like in Blade Runner, like the drama and the politics of how people treat each other and where humanity is in the future. You're going to get to see that. And I think that's some incredible storytelling as well. So it's definitely nuanced and there's different facets to it. And like I said, I can't wait for you guys to see this.
And that's exactly the word that was actually coming to mind, was the nuance. Like, as sci-fi fans, we all understand the nuance of certain characters and playing in those gray areas. Once you get into the professional wrestling side of it, most people don't understand that same nuance exists.
Yeah. And you know, where I don't want to spoil anything, and I believe Michael has 6 issues planned out, and the first issue is the jump off, and it already throws you in terms of just like the sneak peek at the world building that he's going through. And you know, the funny thing is, I didn't spend that much time rendering out these like really ornate backgrounds. I actually kept it so that it almost looks like street level if you walk outside. Now just there's, you know, flying vehicles around, and I feel like, you know, part of that story and part of the idea that he has in this, and sort of like the carry through of how wrestling is, because wrestling has existed for a long time. Obviously, you know, we start talking about like Roman Greco ancient wrestling, which is very real, and then that moment where it becomes sports entertainment, where we're familiar with it coming up through the South and all the Southern wrestling into what it is now in terms of WWE and sports entertainment. It's like a lot of it has stayed the same, and I feel like that idea is really carried through in the storytelling, in the story that Michael's created. So it's like a lot of things change, but a lot of things stay the same, and we get to see that. It's like also the idea of history repeating itself, and we're doomed to repeat that history. We don't learn from it.
Sweet. I must say, your guys' enthusiasm for this project is most infectious. You know, like when Travis originally hit me up and was like, "Hey, I got some guys who need to get on," and then I didn't hear anything from him, and I reached out to Greg, and he's like, "Oh shit, let me go get them." That's right. You know?
I mean, I got a message from Tim last week that says, "You know wrestling, right?" I'm like, "I mean, yeah, it's been a while, but
good,
you know,
because I don't.
I'm not up to the current stuff, but yeah, I've got a pretty vast history with it." And he's like, "Cool, you're coming on because I need someone that knows at least something." And it's like, I'm fascinated. Like, I'm bought in already.
Yeah,
Nice.
I must say, I am actually sold. For like, when I scheduled this, I was like, okay, well, I know Michael Tanner from Junior Brave, so I was like, okay, cool. I'm not familiar with Don, but it looked like, you know, good stuff. And then, you know, on paper in my head, it was like, man, wrestling, space. I should be excited about the space part at least, but I'm just like super turned off. But in general, like, no, I will go back this probably while I'm editing the show. You
I
know,
appreciate that.
Yeah,
it sounds interesting, and I particularly like the points that, you know, obviously both Mike and Don have hit on about, you know, it not being just, well, like you said earlier, like this gladiatorial combat thing. Although I could be down for that stuff too. Like, I like that you're talking about, like, there's this, you know, as you said, Nate, this nuance about what the story is. That could be potentially super fascinating to me. What's the size of your first issue?
It's a standard 22 page
Okay.
first issue. It's the world building and the setup
Okay.
that I think really we're putting the pieces on the board. And I think like Don and Dave did such a great job of like visualizing it and bringing it out and making it interesting. And the story itself like is interesting, of course. I'm not going to say it's not.
Sure, you're writing.
But this is the setup, and it's one of those things where like I'm very happy we were able to do an interesting, compelling first issue, because it really is the setup. We don't get into like the crazy stuff. This is very much like a ground level, like Don said, this is ground level sci-fi in this first issue. We get the hints. We see the robots out. The referee for the wrestling matches is a robot. It's very low key. We've got the cops in their like sci-fi cop uniforms. It's street level, and the story only builds up from there, and that's really exciting. I hope people kind of get that and are hooked by that last page where we see like kind of like, oh, this is where this is going. And I think each issue is going to kind of blow people away with the twists and turns of the story.
So by the time a Kickstarter backer finishes issue 1 of your book, what in your ideal scenario would you want the reader to walk away with from that first issue, Mike?
Wanting more.
Okay.
Like excited about the second issue.
Okay. And then similar question to you, Don. Like, what would you want the viewer, I guess, if we want to look at it that way from an artistic perspective, what would you want them to be excited about by the time they get to the end of the first issue?
It's always that you want more, but in that more, I want people to have enjoyed the work and really just be curious about it. Because ultimately, I feel like that's the thing that always draws me back when I read a comic, when I watch a movie, when I read a book, that it makes you just curious. Like, you don't have to think deeply about it, but there has to be, like, that's the element of fun. It's like, oh, where's this going to go? What's it going to do? Like, what's going to happen to these characters? Like, if you can get drawn into that world and you can care about the characters on the page, which I think you will, that's ultimately where we want it to go. And we want you to take that journey with these characters.
Fair enough. So going to some of your guys's previous projects to this, Mike, like I said before, I'm familiar with Junior Braves. Like, obviously one is for Oni Press and one is for yourself. Like, how has that been? How's that process been? I don't even know. Is this your first Kickstarter project? Like, how has this been, producing it and so to speak?
This is actually my second Kickstarter book.
Okay.
My first one was done a couple years ago called Strike Team Codename Diamond Force, which was my homage to like early 80s action exploitation movies.
Okay.
And that was originally done as kind of a fun project because Junior Braves was kind of stalled out at the time. It's still kind of stalled out.
You're gonna have to give me the dirt on that one.
Book 3 is coming.
Oh, stalled out on book 3. Okay, I got you.
But yeah, it's coming. Book 3 is coming. And so there was like, oh, I did that. It was kind of a fun thing. And this one, I had the idea, and I actually pitched it around to a couple of places that either passed or never responded. But it happens. And I'm like, you know what? I believe in this so much. I want to do this. And it's funny because I just am wrapping up working on a series called Orcs in Space, which is a funny sci-fi comedy series. Volume 2 just came out this week. And Greg and I are actually working on another project that is not officially announced yet, which is also space related. So I'm writing a lot of sci-fi right now.
Okay.
Which I would never have kind of expected. Yeah, it's gonna be wild. We're hoping it gets announced in the next like month or two.
Okay.
Because we're very excited about it because it's kind of a big deal, and it's a 2-book series, and we're very excited. But yeah, so I'm writing a lot of stuff set in space or having to do with space, and running the gamut from Orcs in Space, which is sci-fi comedy, and I can make up whatever rules I want.
Sure.
And the other unannounced one is hard sci-fi, like young adult hard sci-fi.
Okay.
So we're actually having to research and be like talk to NASA people and JPL people to see like, can they do this? Is this a thing we can do? And this where it's future sci-fi, so it's kind of both, and also not centered around the space aspect. So I can be like, yeah, this is what this planet's like. What?
That is,
you can't argue with me. I just made up this planet.
That is hilariously accurate and interesting to me. As a writer myself, my published one is a pulp sci-fi, and presently not out yet in any form, is what I call hard sci-fi. But you answered my own question when you were just like, oh yeah, no, I need to talk to NASA and JPL and all this stuff, and I was like, okay, that's hard sci-fi. Good job. That makes it hard sci-fi in my book.
Some semblance of reality.
Yeah.
Not orcs in space, right?
Obviously very different.
Very different.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. And then, obviously, however I rephrase all of that questioning to Don from an artwork perspective, working on previous projects and stuff. Unfortunately, I'm less familiar with your works. Like, how has it been, doing a Kickstarter project versus, something that's got a big old Marvel tag on it, so to speak?
I am an indie guy through and through. This is where I started. I started as a nobody on Kickstarter with Pablo The Gorrilla. It funded in 72 hours, thankfully, when nobody knew who the
Dang,
heck I was.
that was awesome.
And the amazing thing is Dustin Wynn, who I constantly get mistaken for somehow. I think
Okay.
people just see the first initial and the last thing he did the variant cover for my comic.
I mean, it could be
Which,
worse. I literally Googled Michael Tanner while we were recording, and the first thing came up was an obituary for a different writer.
Oh, did he die?
Apparently,
Oh, no.
yeah. There's like a.
He's made my creative life a living hell. Is this the guy who writes about Nietzsche?
I don't know.
Cato
He
Institute?
looked like a younger professor, balding. Said born in '66 or something.
Mustache? Was he bald with a mustache?
Yes. Yeah, that one.
Oh,
he's dead
he
now.
died.
Apparently.
Oh, that makes me sad and kind of relieved.
Oh.
At least for my Google results.
No.
Sorry, other Michael Tanner who writes about Nietzsche and works for the Cato Institute.
The Fork in Your Ear podcast does not endorse this message.
Yeah.
Or
we apologize to the family of the other Mike Tanner.
Yes.
I'm sorry, other Mike Tanner.
Both the friends and family, but for this Michael Tanner, hey, his SEO is going to jump off the charts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yours is like 3 lower than the guy who died. Just saying.
Yeah.
That guy.
What are you going to do, man? But yeah, Dustin was kind enough to do a variant cover for Pablo The Gorrilla. So that was just an incredible experience. And then since then, I've now been part of 16 Kickstarter campaigns.
Wow.
I'm part of Battle Grapple Rebel right now. And then I did some artwork for Cannibal on Mars, which is running concurrently. That's from David Schrader and Tony Donnelly.
That sounds cool.
It has a variant cover done by Ray Anthony Height, who's worked on Star Wars, Dr. Aphra.
Oh, nice.
I'm
actually a big fan of that comic book.
Perfect. So yeah, that's another fantastic comic. But yeah, I've been a part of a bunch of Cthulhu books. I just realized. So, Wannabe Press's Cthulhu is hard to spell. The Terrible Twos. I was in that, and then Orange Cone Press with Cthulhu Invades Oz and Invades Wonderland. And upcoming, we'll be invading Neverland, so I'll be probably a part of that as well. It's just been an honor to be able to do artwork for other people, variant covers, sketch cards, posters, pinups, whatever it is. But yeah, I really do love the indie comics community. I love Kickstarter. Crowdfunding is something that really wasn't in the ether. It didn't exist for us. This was not an option like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it may have been. Yeah. And it was all vanity publishing before that, and there was no mechanism for pre-sale, which is the most important thing. So, crowdfunding, people think sometimes as begging for money, but you got to think of more of it as a promotional tool where you now have the audience outreach that you did not have before. And the community is fantastic in terms of, coming in and checking out the projects. We have a couple super backers on this. Shout out to them. They're always dropping comments in whenever Travis or Michael post an update. And it's incredible to see how involved they are in the process and how enthusiastic they are about projects. And then, when you go to conventions to have people come up to you who kind of actually do know who you are, that's amazing as well. And we appreciate that. If you enjoy the stories, please come seek us out and let us know, because that'll just make our days.
So that brings up an interesting question in terms of conventions and promotions. Obviously you guys found our way to our show through Greg Smith, who I ran into at a Comic-Con that one of my friends happened to be the owner of, a local one, and I saw the Junior Braves thing, and and I slid him my Eagle Scout card to see if he was like the real deal or if it was some BS. And away to the races we went. And having known Greg for a number of years now, I've never seen anyone be at more conventions than Greg and comic book artists. Do you guys find the convention circuit fun or just another part of the job? And then also, second question to that, COVID happened. How's it been since?
Don is the convention machine.
Oh, is he?
Don,
Okay.
do you do 10? You do 10 conventions a year, right? Like I feel like that's a low number, right?
10 or under. Yeah, I'm not one of the big con guys. I have friends that do 35 at least, like 32 to 35 or more, which that blows my mind. Usually it's a lot of product pinup artists.
Sure.
People who have like small art books. So not people necessarily that are just doing pages, because doing pages is, you got to grind out pages. So there's really very little time for that. But yeah, a lot of commission artists, a lot of pinup artists usually do that many shows. But yeah, for me, I try not to do more than 10 shows a year. And then in 2019, I started applying for shows across the states to sort of expand my reach and meet new people. But I find I love doing shows. I'm a commission guy, so if anybody out there, check my social media for what cons I'll be at. That's my bread and butter. I love doing commissions, take commissions. I deliver commissions same day, same show usually. So I try to deliver on commissions, and I have 100% success rate at that. So it's been pretty awesome. But yeah, it's incredible to meet people, incredible to pitch, and then also incredible when those people come back because they like what you do and they want to see more, and they want to see if you're doing something different or if you're sticking to the same thing. So Pablo The Gorrilla #2, I'm finally working on now because during the pandemic, it kind of put the kibosh because I was supposed to tour in 2020 with it, and I ended up picking up a ton of other work with other projects, and I've done a bunch of anthologies and stuff. So yeah, just trying to keep busy and trying to churn work out. But I think I'm at usually 8 to 10 shows a year. And then we started coming back to shows last fall. So my first show back, I believe, was Rose City Comic Con, which was also my first solo table experience ever. And it was just incredible to be back and see some familiar faces that I met the first time that have since become friends and get commissions from me. And yeah, shout out to all those people out there. But yeah, it actually has been an incredible experience going back to shows, because not only do you realize how you miss it, but shows, because of the restrictions, have been smaller audiences, but the audiences have been almost more, if you will, participatory. So I'd done a special edition for San Diego Comic-Con last year, and the number one comment you heard everybody, especially if they had attended like Comic-Cons back in the day at San Diego, they're like, this is like how San Diego used to be. It's just comic book creators, and people were stopping and talking to you and having actual conversations, and nobody was stressed out. Which, if you guys have been to San Diego or been to any of the big cons like run by Reed Pop, you know how it is, like Emerald City Con, C2E2, New York. It's a grind in just terms of like getting through the door, let alone like, being a fan, let alone being a creator, and then having to like wade through the bodies of people or getting bumped into all the time, and no one's minding their manners. And it was just such a different experience, especially last year in terms of going to cons. It was oddly very relaxing.
Yeah, that's something I've heard from a lot of people doing the PAX circuit this year. It's where it used to be just inundated with AAA creators and studios. It's gotten back down to its indie roots, and a lot of people have gone in and they're like, well, that's kind of weird that we're used to seeing all these giants. It's nice that it's getting back to the indies, and again, it feels more personal than it used to.
Sure.
I like conventions in theory. Like I love going to conventions. Tabling at conventions I like in theory because I am a delicate flower, and there's nothing worse than like having a bad day at a con. The sitting there and just like, the worst ever was a LA Comic Con a couple years ago. A friend of mine had a table. He was given a table. He was a guest of the show. But he was real low on stock, and he sold out of his stock on Saturday. He's like, I have no reason to come back tomorrow.
Like,
I was like, I was like, can I have your table? He's like, yeah, sure.
Nice.
So
those tables are fucking expensive.
Yeah. So free table. Guess how many books I sold that entire day? One.
Oh,
I sold one book there for 6 hours, and the book that I sold was a pity buy by another creator. And we all know creators. We all know pity buys. We've all done pity buys.
I only have pity buys.
Yes, that's some shows. That's all I do. So it's like, thank goodness for that person who bought that copy of Junior Braves full price. So I made $10 that day because like I pay for my stock. So
Sure.
Yeah.
so like that was the worst day. And there is nothing worse than being at a con and not making money. And my first show back, like Don, was Rose City Comic Con this year or last year, 2021.
Mhm.
And it was a decent show. Rose City's always a good show, and it was a good show. But man, I hate being at bad cons because they sap your will to live, man.
Right.
Yeah, and it's depressing. It is like depressing as a creator, and people can sense that, right? Like people go like, and
100%.
I've seen this, I've done it, and I've seen it from creators who get like desperate, like be selling books, and that just makes people not want to buy from you even more.
Right.
It is cruel. Conventions are cruel. I've come to that conclusion.
Have you guys all talked about this? I don't know if it gets brought up a lot, but just from an indie creator standpoint, it is a grind and it is tough. And for people looking to get into comics, we all joke about this in terms of being comic creators. We all joke sarcastically that we get in it for the money, which is 100% absolutely not true. And most of the time, especially for me when I started out, and even now, the only goal that I have that I try to at least do at any show is just to make table, which is to make back the cost of the table. Not to like, make back my travel expenses, my incidentals, not any of that. So if I do a show where I can make back the table, I can make back my travel, I can make back my incidentals, whatever that is an amazing show. And I've been fortunate enough to do that, since we came back. But like Michael said, you never know. And so for anybody who listens to this, who loves indie comics, who loves comic books, if you go and support a creator, if you were walking through Artist Alley, you see an artist and you're like, I like this person's work. I don't know who the hell they are. And a lot of people don't know who the hell I am. Look at that person's artwork. If you like that artwork, please buy that person's artwork, because the fact of the matter is you never know if you're ever going to see that person again. The rate of turnover in terms of indie creators, comic book creators is astronomical. I have not even done this that long. Like I said, my first solo Artist Alley table was Rose City Comic Con 2018. And the rate of turnover that I've seen of just people who die out because it's too much for them, even just doing local shows. Like Michael, you used to be an LA guy, you're back up in the Pacific Northwest now. Just even people in like the LA indie scene, like you never know if they're going to come back. So if you like somebody's work, make that mental note. If you're not picking it up, but at the moment that you see it, do come back and just buy something from them.
Right.
Just to show them a little bit of love, because it does really mean a lot for the creators. And if you supported us on Kickstarter, like I said, if you enjoy the product, come up to us. Let us know. Like I said, I don't charge for autographs. If you want to bring CGC or whatever grading company over and have me sign something, I'll even do a remark if you buy it directly from me. A lot of people know that. Tip of the trade, if you come and buy from me, I will totally just do a quick remark on your book for you. Just, come show support. We love it. We love hearing from fans, love meeting new fans, love meeting people. And that for me is the joy. And, like Michael, I bombed at shows before. But I always try to find the silver lining in the show. Like I said, I bombed at this one show, and in that same show, Justin Wynn came over and offered to do a variant cover. He was just like, hey, I saw you've been doing your Pablo the Gorrilla book. Like, how far along? And I was like, oh, man, I'm about to letter and color this thing, man. I'm almost done with it. He's like, I'll do a variant cover for you. And I just stood there, like, jaw agape going, I'm sorry, what did you just say? Like, the guy who won 2 Eisners, like what? So you never know like what can come out of a bad show, how a good show is gonna be, who you're gonna meet. I think a lot of us, we're just out there trying to do our best. So yeah, if you see something that catches your eye, if you hear a pitch, like just even like just eavesdropping on another creator pitching, and you think that's a great story, go and support that person.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you haven't been a professional artist since before 2018.
So my first big project was some people know me from doing Inktober, in 2017, I partnered with this wonderful writer, my buddy Andy Nordval, who I met at the Comic Creator Connection panel through San Diego Comic-Con. And we are the first official Inktober. So we're blessed by Jake, who is the creator of Inktober. And we're the first official book to take all 31 of his prompts and create a continuous story beginning to end. And that story came out, and that project came out because Dustin Wynn, I would run into him at conventions, and he started seeing my artwork and following me. He's like, "Hey, are you doing anything with like your art?" And I made it a point, and that's the secret to making comics, right? Is you have to make stuff and produce stuff and put it out there. So I made it a point to produce that book, and I wanted to put it into his hands and be like, "Hey, dude, look, I made something." So technically, that's when my official publication history started, was with the 2017 Inktober project called Siren Song, which went #1 on Amazon Kindle and top 100 in Amazon print for sci-fi and fantasy illustration.
Nice.
That's awesome. Beat out Star Wars art book, 2 Legend of Zelda art books, and I believe Metal Gear Solid.
Wow, that's surprising that it beat those 2.
That's some chops. Yeah.
Take that, Star Wars, even though I love Star
Wars. So what were you up to before that? Like, how did you get into artistry, I guess?
I've always drawn since I was a little kid, and obviously I've drawn comics. I discovered comics when I was 5 or 6, but really got into it in the 90s during the Image Founders era, and then I just left it. By the time I got into college, I was like, I need to study and like concentrate on whatever I was doing at that point in time. And then after I left school, I ended up being in fine arts. I went from a science background, doing lab stuff, being like an undeclared bio major basically. And then I decided I wanted to learn something, went into fine arts, did studio fine arts for a while, did not enjoy the gallery scene, and then went back into research. And I was with the Rand Corporation. I don't know if you guys know what the Rand Corporation is, but it's a pretty well-known think tank.
But
Refresh my memory. It was created in 1948. It was known as Project Air Force. It was one of the first think tanks in the U.S. It's deeply tied to the government, so a lot of people have problems with it. Okay. But the portion that I was in dealt a lot with health and public policy research, which is their primary objective now. Most of the research that they do is in that. For example, one of the projects I dealt with was for the Wounded Warrior project. So we dealt, it was very close. We dealt with the VA, and I discovered some incredible things about the VA that I didn't know at the time, like their information database isn't centralized, which is kind of a shame. So I hope they've since fixed that. But yeah, I did public policy research for 10 years, and then one day walked into a comic book shop after not having been into comics. And like I said, I saw, Chris Bachalo's artwork, Scotty Young's artwork, and, Humberto Ramos's artwork, and that lit a fire under me, and I decided that's what I want to do. And my family was in a good enough position where I was able to leave Rand and try to pursue being comics. And I've been super fortunate. I've obviously worked with Dustin Wynn on something. A lot of people might also know me from helping out, Punisher co-creator Jerry Conway with the design for a fundraiser he did. So some people know me from that. I've been able to work with talent like Mike Tanner, been on books with crazy people like Paul Jenkins, with the Cthulhu is Hard to Spell books, and he worked on Constantine with a Hellblazer. So yeah, it's been kind of a wild, insane ride, and hopefully, I can pay some of that back in terms of what I do and keep producing great art and storytelling.
I mean, that's actually kind of amazing considering like the road to certain modicums of success there has been like short, apparently, right, for your circumstance. So that's pretty awesome, honestly.
Thank you. I've been very lucky.
Yeah, clearly. So what about you, Mike? Have you always been a writer, or or what's the secret life behind Mike Tanner?
Yeah, I think I've always been wanted to be a writer and wrote and created stories. I still have a folder of comic book creators, comic book characters that I created when I was like 8 or 9.
Oh, nice. Yeah, those are important. You gotta hang on to those.
I really do want to do something with those characters someday. And then like in high school, me and my friends like created a comic book company, quote unquote, when we did We did some comics, and then like for college, I went into writing. That's where I met Greg Smith, my writing partner, and then I studied television writing, and I moved to LA in order to pursue that, and that didn't happen. And I kind of like stepped away from that. Yeah, like, and I tell a story a lot where like Greg and I had a lot of interest in us as creators for a very short moment in time, and then the writer's strike happened, and any prospect we had just died immediately.
He's actually told the other part of that story on this show. So.
Oh yeah, so listeners, you know what happened.
Yeah,
there.
you gotta go back like 2 years, I think. It's one of them somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I don't overplay it where we would have absolutely become like Aaron Sorkins or anything like that. We were in a position where we might have been able to get writer's assistant jobs on like a Sci-Fi Channel original series like that, in like 2006, 2007 or whatever. Writer's strike happened. Everyone we knew in the industry who would have given us those jobs or gotten us those jobs left the industry, or the executives we knew moved beyond our capacity to reach them. Or like they got promotions and they weren't taking calls from those guys who were semifinalists in like 5 writing competitions all in 1 year. And then, so it's like, I got to figure out plan B. Like, what am I going to do now? So I settled into a hobby, which was being a roller derby referee for several years.
I saw that you had a roller derby comic on your website.
Oh yeah, I did, and that was my first published comic work. Is Oni Press was doing an anthology about roller derby, because this was like right before roller derby hit peak modern breakthrough. The Elliot Page movie with Drew Barrymore, Whip It, that was like the moments. This was a couple years before
peak.
that.
Yeah,
that was peak. And so they were doing an anthology comic, and I'm like, I'm a roller derby referee. I'm in roller derby. I can write a submission for it. I submitted a story for it. It got selected. So that was my first comic book work. And it's very funny. I got paid more for that like 8-page anthology story than I've made in a lot of other paid comic book work, which is hilarious to me. But yeah, and so that led to me having done that and knowing someone from roller derby who was going to go work for Oni Press. They didn't work there at the time of the anthology, but they're moving up there, and they're like, "Oh, I need stuff to bring. Like, are you a comic book writer? Like, pitch me ideas." And the story is that I was riding with this person, Charlie Chu, in the car when Greg sent me the text, which was the one-line pitch for Junior Braves, and Charlie loved it. So we pitched it to Oni. They loved it, and that was how I got a comic book career, was having an interesting hobby and being at the right place at the right time. That's it.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, my derby family is real close. So,
you're in the derby family.
Partially, my brother-in-law was a referee, and they met through the photographer at my wedding, who was a good friend of my wife's best friend, who is also in derby. So,
what league?
San Fernando Valley Derby Dolls.
Oh,
Derby Dolls!
I ref for San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
You probably might know my brother-in-law.
What's his? Does he have a derby name?
I don't remember it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, my sister is Countess von Bonebreak.
That name is not familiar, but yeah, I've refed twice for San Fernando Valley. Like when they needed some backup. Yeah, like roller derby. Like I'm really hoping it gets another resurgence, and it's kind of due in about 5 more years. So I'm hoping all those junior skaters who have been skating, I hope they get their moment to shine, and they can have their own movie made about roller derby.
Yeah, there used to be like so many, like not only just like roller skating, but like also like inline skates and like all just like skates in general.
Yeah,
and like now it's all kind of gone.
I
know the rink local to me.
Are you old enough
down,
for Gleaming the Cube?
Oh yeah.
I gotta finish that movie.
Wait, was that River Phoenix or
no? That was Christian Slater.
Christian Slater.
Hmm?
I can't remember which one it was.
You can just remember the hair.
Yes. The hair.
Yeah, it's the hair.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like I can talk about roller derby
Yeah.
like forever now because I think.
But no,
it
speaks to these little irreverent connections between like roller derby and I've got
Mm-hmm.
ties with the Renaissance Fair, and again, you just run into people and you go, oh, you do this, and then you can click in so many different ways, and it just the opportunities available from what you thought was, this is just a fun little hobby.
Yeah, and there's a weird connection where Don worked with Andy Nordville, who we mentioned on Siren Song. Andy is my co-host on my podcast, Burn After Pitching. Andy's daughter does junior roller derby in LA. So it's this weird kind of like these weird connections. It's wild.
It's community. We all have like there's a Venn diagram of like general, and then in those divisions you can find a lot of commonality. Obviously in that Venn diagram crossover, but in the little groups, like you're gonna find out a lot of people are involved in different things. Like D&D is back in like a huge major way. So like I've seen all these people. I'm like, I've never played, and everybody's like, let's all go play D&D. It's like I don't have the time to learn it, but if you want to show me, I'm happy to sit down when we have some free time and do it. And I feel like, Tim, are you doing okay down there? It's like,
yeah, I'm doing fine. No, I play Pathfinder, which was Dungeons and Dragons 3.5.
Yeah,
but I didn't really like 7 years ago, and then like somebody was like, hey, do you want to like play or something like that? And now I'm a GM, so
nice.
So it goes, But before that, it was like literally like I was a little kid in Boy Scouts, and I think I played like one game of Dungeons and Dragons on a literal stormy night in a shitty cabin somewhere.
Right. It was we've got nothing better to do. Let's play some D&D.
Yeah, no, it was it was straight up like the graph paper, the pencil. We had some mag lights that had terrible bulbs in them that were dying on us slowly. And like the rain was coming in through the non-existent windows, but there were holes there in the cabin, so
There you go.
I did a movie.
In high school, I played Shadowrun and Vampire the Masquerade.
Nice.
And only in high school, and then I have not played role-playing games since forever, except for 2 months ago, I joined a Fallout role-playing game.
Oh, okay.
We play online, and that's actually what I'm doing after this podcast.
So that's the hard out at 5. Okay, I get you.
Yeah. So it's funny.
I
like
did pen and paper, and then did a little LARPing for a hot minute.
I didn't know you. Yeah,
we did LARP for our vampire games.
Yep.
Oh wow, that's cool.
To be fair, Mike also works on videos though that are Fallout videos.
Oh yeah,
because I do the Machinima series.
Yeah. Oh really? You do a Machinima series? That's awesome.
Yeah, I write it. Other people do the hard work.
I mean, I guess that's probably fair. I'm a writer. Other people do the Machinima stuff. It's
like
way
legit. Like the process I'm fascinated by, but like the time, because it's all labors of love. So I think it's being done by one person right now. The idea was that it's called Into the Mystery. It's based on the Fallout 76. Look it up. Yeah, it's based on Fallout 76.
Yeah.
The Mistress of Mystery questline. A guy had the idea to kind of wanting to turn it into a series, not a walkthrough, but kind of a narrative story that people might like. Sure. If you like that questline, you kind of can like this story. And we did, I think, 4 episodes. And then some of the people involved kind of left, and then it was decided to, instead of doing like the 5th and final episode, kind of redo all the episodes and make it into a movie.
Okay.
Like make it into it's no longer like, like 5 15-minute episodes. It's now going to be 60 minutes straight through.
Right. Sure.
And so that, I don't know when that's going to be done, but I wrote it and I'm very proud of it. And I hope the guy who's working on it finishes it, because he's very talented, and I know he has other projects, but he will send me updates every like couple of weeks. I'm like, you're still working on this. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'll let people know when that finally comes out, because it's going to be pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Apparently many hidden talents over there, Mr. Tam.
I gotta keep busy. Or I will go mad.
Do you have hidden stuff, Don?
What's your secret hobbies, Don?
Yeah, what's your secret stuff?
What are my secrets? I mean, I no longer do martial arts. I was a black belt in Taekwondo.
Oh. Awesome.
And there were no enemies who could best you, so you retired, right?
Yeah, I wish. No, I went to a tournament as a kid, and I the first guy I faced was a junior Olympian, and I knocked him down in like my first 2 kicks. I don't think he was too happy. I ended up with face contusion afterwards.
Oh,
and
man.
I was drinking like mashed potatoes and hot dogs through a straw.
Holy crap.
I was like, you know what? That's all right.
Wow.
It was a learning experience, but no, that was fun. Yeah, in terms of that, I really haven't had time to do much other than draw. I used to sit and play guitar. My wife got me a ukulele, and I just haven't had time to like teach myself that stuff recently. It's been just draw. I have like 20 short boxes of comics. I feel bad. I'm just buying comics at this point, not even reading them. I've read a few, like Porn Sex, The Good Asian. I don't know if any of you guys have read it. If you haven't, pick it up. It's
I haven't heard of those ones specifically, no.
Yeah, Good Asian. It's a fantastic book. I like to say it's like, if anybody here is a fan of Chinatown with Jack Nicholson, imagine Chinatown but with more Asian people.
Okay.
It's a really good series. So I read a little bit of that on like the 3rd issue, 4th issue. But yeah, just haven't had time to do much. Just really just trying to get pages and artwork out into the world. And that's been my focus. I've been trying to be laser focused about it for the last few years, and hopefully it pays off. And I feel like it has been paying off. And like I said, I've been very lucky with that. So, and that again speaks to what Michael was saying earlier, where he said he was lucky and in the right place in the right time, but it's also being able to deliver when that opportunity comes up. Yeah.
Hey, that's how I got here.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Nate started off as a fan of this show. Yep. Did you start off as a fan when this was a different show?
No, you were always Fork.
Specifically always Fork. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Because I've been podcasting since like 2006.
Wow.
So I've always had a podcast of some kind. Like not all of them lasted. Some were better than others. But this one has definitely stuck. God, what are we at? 4, 5 years now?
Something like that, of which I've been around for almost 2 now.
Yeah, almost 2 now. Yep.
Yeah.
Congrats to both of you guys. That's
right.
Longevity.
And
there.
And it was one of those, I was just a listener, and then one day it was like, hey, there's not an episode this week. Now it's been 2 weeks, and I'm like, is everything okay? And it's like, yeah, just stuff's coming up, and I can't get a co-host, and life's gotten sideways for everyone. I'm like, if you ever need me to come guest one, I'll run one with you just so you can get an episode out. And next thing you know,
here we are. And then it was permanent.
That's incredible.
Can't get rid of me.
That's so cool.
There's no pill to get rid of me.
It happens. Yeah.
Once you feed the strays.
Yeah. You Dr. Laura your way into a podcast career.
Yeah.
Like Mike stuck with me. He can't do anything about it.
Right.
Michael and Andy, both of those guys are stuck with me.
Yeah, intertwined for all eternity.
For all eternity, yeah.
You mentioned you have your own podcast. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah. It's
Burn
called
After
Burn
Reading.
After
That's a great name, by the way.
Burn
After Pitching. Sorry.
Inspired by Burn After Reading. It's a comedy pitching podcast where we have a panel of creatives on to pitch their ideas on everything from ice cream flavors to movie reboots.
Okay.
It's a monthly podcast, so it's
just like a fun thing,
very
not like a thing that will have legal action afterward.
We've thought about the potential issues if someone were to take one of the pitches and do something with it. And it's funny because actually the original version of Grapple Rebel, I did on Burn After Pitching on an episode, but it was an episode that never aired because there was an audio issue.
Smart.
So it's like, oh well, like that helped me kind of really like do the outline, was thinking about it for the show and pitching a beginning, middle, and end. But yeah, so it's a fun show, and yeah, Burn After Pitching. Our new episode should be going up pretty soon, where we had people pitch comebacks. Pick a celebrity who needs a comeback, and then pitch what their comeback should be. Yeah, and I chose Kelsey Grammer.
I love Kelsey Grammer. He's so good, man.
Yeah.
So fucking underutilized.
How should he come back? So I pitched that he's going to start his own podcast. And it's going to be a true crime podcast.
Who wouldn't listen to Kelsey Grammer's dulcet voice?
Yeah.
in your ear.
So it's a true crime podcast where he has on a celebrity guest from either Cheers or Frasier.
Okay.
And they talk about a true crime and relate it to an episode of either Cheers or Frasier.
Oh man, he's got to take that idea when he hears this. That's fantastic.
Well,
I'll be suing
if I don't
Kelsey
hear a
Grammer in the
pitch,
near
if I don't
future.
hear a pitch with Christian Slater in the next episode, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Ah,
He's got a
That-
decent body of work.
that's one. It's interesting because, like, I guess Mr. Robot has been gone long enough where he needs a new thing.
Yeah, true.
But I
yeah.
would have argued that Mr. Robot was his comeback, at least season 1, right?
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No spoilers.
I mean, you
on
could
that
do
one.
Pump Up the Volume 2 and have it be about hearing aids for all I know.
Wasn't Christian Slater in that short-lived? I'm pretty sure it was a Fox show because it was canceled. My Own Worst Enemy, where he like was like a
Yes.
Yeah, I
spy,
think so,
but
yeah.
like he had like a clock that would like screw his brain or something into somebody else for like random periods of time or something. Like
That sounds like a Fox premise.
I thought it was a great
Listen,
show. I'm just saying.
It's going to be a high concept.
Yeah,
and we're not gonna support
high
it, so you're
concept,
getting
high
one
cancel
season.
rate.
Yeah.
That's Fox, and apparently Netflix now.
Oh.
Too soon.
Not
Seems like-
soon enough.
It seems like
I'd say.
every day there's something awesome that's getting canceled at Netflix. It's a tragedy. Like the whole animation, like that's gotta
Yeah.
like kill
Ugh.
you guys.
That's
like, right in the
yeah.
feels.
I know someone who's actually affected by that, and it's
Mhm.
I just learned that Netflix had the rights to Jeff Smith's Bone, another Image
Yeah.
comic.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I thought it was
what
just
the
about-
shit? It's canceled before it even saw the light of day. I am so devastatedly hurt.
Did you
Well, at
see his
least it
cartoon
never
about
saw the
that?
light of day, which means someone else can grab it without having to worry about
I
tricky
hope.
licensing rights.
Unless like
I think-
Netflix needs to start selling this shit off, you know, like it's insane.
Yeah. I think Jeff is done with that because did you see his cartoon about that whole scenario?
No, I
situation?
didn't.
Oh yeah, Google it. I'm sure it'll pop up. He
Okay.
did,
I'll Google it
did
for
a-
sure.
he did a one-panel comic about it, and it was kind of heartbreaking.
Oh no. So I should or shouldn't Google it because that
Depends
doesn't
on
sound
whether or not you want to see. I personally thought it was funny.
okay.
I was like, oh man, that's pretty acerbic and on the nose. Yeah, you got to feel for him. And yeah, that's with any creator. Like I felt bad that they put the kibosh on the Crow reboot. Although I guess there's going to be a new Crow reboot.
Was that
Yeah.
was that also coming up? Was that a Netflix thing?
It was
or
going to
no?
be Jason Momoa was going to be the Crow, but now
you know, I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
yeah. I remember. It's like,
they posted some of the test photos of him
Okay.
in the makeup.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I
remember,
can see it.
yeah, I
Sure.
remember James.
I don't want to
LeBar,
see it.
Right.
but there's somebody else is going to be it, or is apparently in
Probably
talks to
Jared
be-
Leto. Like that would be.
See,
no.
I bet you it's Timothy Chalamet.
I was
Oh,
gonna say,
yeah,
it might be
yeah.
Chalamet, but
It's,
I was going to
it's
say,
gonna
at
be
this
him.
point, it could be Robert Pattinson. So,
Yeah.
oh, I think it's
Yeah.
what's his name from Castle Rock, the Skarsgård, the guy who played it.
There's a lot
Oh,
of
that's
Skarsgård.
right,
So
yeah.
there's Bill. There's the one from True Blood. Of
It's
course, the old
creepy
guy.
eyes
That-
Skarsgård.
yeah.
It's
So,
it's the
okay,
cre-
so that's
it's the
Bill.
one who
I
played
think.
it.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's the one who's in talks to play the Crow.
Okay.
Also, are all of the Skarsgårds related?
Yeah.
I don't-
leave so.
So it's the dad who was
Yeah.
Bootstrap Bill from the Pirates movies,
Mhm.
and then the other ones are all his kids.
Yeah,
He has like friggin'
Even
5
the
kids.
Maggie Gyllenhaal one.
no, there's that
Maggie?
Peter Sarsgaard, not
Oh, that's
Skarsgård.
Skarsgård, not
Yeah.
Skarsgård.
I've
They have
confused him
those
in there
sweet-
too. He's
Very
a
different.
Skarsgård, not a Skarsgård. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Sarsgaard.
Peter Sarsgaard. Yeah,
Yeah. It gets
But they're all, like,
complicated.
they're all like gorgeous models and actors. Like,
Right?
it's real-
They're
Like, what the
Swedish
fuck?
Swedish or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
You gotta go see the North.
Those Swedes, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
even the creepy guy, man, he's like makeup when he's not in
Yeah.
makeup. You're like, oh, this dude is stupid good looking. What the hell?
Friggin' genetics, man. It's
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. So, how did you guys come to, or maybe it was more Mike's doing? How did you guys come to the name Battle Grapple Rebel specifically?
I
Because it
decided I
almost
didn't
sounds
want
like a
to-
sequel.
Well.
Well, so the idea is Battle Grapple is what they call pro wrestling in this future. It's the Battle Grapple because I wanted it to be not just pro wrestling.
Sure.
So wanted to give it a unique name for the setting. And the Rebel comes out of it's Battle Grapple Rebel. So the idea of you'll understand once the story gets further along, it'll make more sense. But the idea is also that if this proves to be something that hits and people like this world and they want to return to it, is the next series could follow an entirely different character, entirely different kind of part of it, but still it's Battle Grapple
Christian
something
Slater.
else. Yeah, Battle Grapple Slater. Christian Slater was cryogenically frozen and awoken in 400 years
just
in
the
the future.
on my head and stick it on a robot. Yeah.
Listen, I will draw Cyborg Slater. I'm cool with that. I draw Cyborg Gorrilla already. Cyborg Slater should not be that much harder.
Oh my gosh. That sounds
oh my goodness. I want to add that character.
Cyborg Slater.
And Cyborg Slater, he looks like Christian Slater. They never say his first name is Christian, but they'll refer to that he was cryogenically frozen and was formerly an actor.
Yeah. Oh, we got to get the Slater.
Yeah, technically it's not Christian Slater. It's just another guy from the 21st century named Slater.
But we're just going to have him standing, like when he has to communicate with his electronic gods, just in front of a cube and see if anybody gets that joke.
Ah, yeah. Gleaming the information from the... I've asked it to pump up the volume so I can hear it better.
Yes.
Oh, he put him in the cuffs.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Gosh.
Well, Tim, if they ever need a low rent Josh Brolin, I guess you can loan me off to them.
I watch Hot Ones on YouTube. You heard of that show with the chicken wings and the actors?
Yeah.
And they have Josh Brolin on, and he's wearing basically exactly what Nate wears all the fucking time. And I was just like, oh my God, are you related to Josh Brolin? He didn't take too kindly to that.
Oh no.
So we call him low rent Josh Brolin around here.
I can kind of see it.
Thank you. That's what I was saying.
The only problem with that is, so can I. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing.
No, it's a great thing.
Not living in LA.
My wife had a coworker that looked like Claire Danes, and I always joked with her. I was like, you should totally sell it as she is Claire Danes and just try to get into clubs. Just like show up someplace fancy and be like, yo, you know Thanos here? And just get into the club.
Yeah, he just looks a little skinnier because he's losing weight for a role. You know how method Josh is.
Listen, camera adds 10 pounds. It's for real. That's a real thing. Just be like, hey, No Country for Old Men. Let's go.
Hey, when's that Jonah Hex sequel coming out?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Let's see. A question that I found rather interesting when forgive me if I'm forgetting the name of the artist that we had on who did the art for Travis and Greg's Starlight comic.
Brett
Weldy.
Weldelli, yeah.
I screwed up his
Deli,
last
that's Weldelli. That's what I've been talking.
Something that was an interesting question that I had to him that spurred a lot of interesting conversation was, what is your artist medium, Don? Because when I asked him, he was like, well, I've been in the industry a really long time, so it was originally pencils, and then I was like hating my own career, and then the iPad came around, and he's like, and now I fucking love doing art again because it's so freeing and stuff. And he was really extolling the virtues of how that technology changed his own career and made him like love his own career. So like, what's like, are you pen paper? Are you like a Surface Tabis? Like what do you use?
I use whatever somebody is willing to pay for, and most of the time, it's digital. So some people might actually know me as a smartphone artist. I started when I left Rand. I started doing work. I started starting. Sorry, I use the word "start" a lot now. It sounds weird. I started on my smartphone doing storyboards. So people go, "Oh, I know this guy who can do concept art for you and storyboards from his smartphone, and he'll just Dropbox them to you." and he's not that expensive. So I was fortunate enough to do some of that. And yeah, I do all my thumbnails and all my stuff from a smartphone. And then if it needs to go to print, I'll up-res it on a desktop. But yeah, I have a Surface, I have an iPad. I use a buttery smooth Wacom Cintiq Pro.
Yeah, I was gonna say a Wacom something.
And then for commissions, if you guys come and find me, weirdest question, because people will see, how do you do this art? And most of the printed stuff is done digitally. But I've had people ask me, like, how are you on pen and paper? And I'm like, I'm a rock star. If you pay me on a commission, it's pen and paper. Pen, paper, markers, paint, whatever you need, I will do it. Like I said, I was in art school. I thought going to art school, I went to UCLA. I thought it would teach me technical skills. It taught me absolutely nothing in terms of that. It was all art theory.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing a lot of sculptural work and a lot of performative art and a lot of spray painting around LA. So that's kind of where I come from. So it's about what you have at hand and what you can use. And part of that's my background, just not growing up with very much, in terms of what other people might see is not very much, but just, having crayons or, finding colored pencils. My favorite paint set as a kid came from school. Back in the day when teachers weren't just paying out of pocket for school supplies, like school actually gave you school supplies.
Mm-hmm.
I was given like an 8-color set of praying watercolors, and I used it all the way up through college, and it was the best watercolor set I've ever owned. But yeah, so come find me, come ask about my commissions, get on my commissions list, and that stuff is all done analog. But yeah, you can also get digital commissions from me, or get a page done. And a lot of it is digital.
I guess what I would further ask on that is which is your preferred medium to create art on?
I like old school comics. I love just ink and markers, honestly. That's how I love doing the commissions: ink, marker, and watercolor. The last few paintings I've sold have all been mixed media like that, and that's what I probably enjoy the most, because there's a certain amount of speed to it, but it also lends itself to a certain texture in terms of how the colors bleed into each other and where they sort of fill and border, and it's great to play with in the negative space. So I'm all about that. But yeah, whatever it takes to get a piece done. And in terms of my style, the style is just whatever suits the project and to get the project done. And that's always been the goal. And for anybody, who is listening to this right now, who wants to get into drawing comics, wants to get into art, I feel like that should be your mentality. It's just whatever it takes to get it done. Because was lucky enough to sit on a panel where Scotty Young was talking about one of his first projects for Marvel. And he was like, yeah, it was like a 24-page comic, but every page I drew it differently. And I was like, yeah, because he was like, you just have to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be right. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do your job, tell the story, get it done, get it out there. And I think that's the consistency that a lot of people look for. And I feel like I've been able to deliver it, and fortunate enough to be able to deliver. But yeah.
Sweet. So question over to you, Mike, about the writing process. So for you, you mentioned that you learned script writing and stuff. Did those skills really help translate over to writing a script of a comic book? This is a question I always ask a lot of the writers that we've had on the show, because somehow all the writers we've had on the show are comic book writers. And I've asked people both on the show and at other Comic Cons that I've been to and stuff. An interesting question that I asked to Matt Fraction at Emerald City Comic Con, because I was also considering doing some of my projects in comic book form, but I've only ever written novels and novellas, and obviously it's very different. And I asked him that, how do you transfer the different mediums within the subgenre of comics? And I remember very clearly Matt Fraction was like, I don't fucking know, dude. I'm a comic book writer.
That's funny.
Which is the most classic Matt Fraction response to anything. He's like, I write comic books. I don't know how to write fucking novels. So
I think it's I'm gonna say they're very similar skills in terms of screenplay and comic.
Okay.
because they're both visual mediums, and the script is only the first step.
Sure.
So there's similarities there. The difference is, and this is something that we still kind of struggle with. And this was a note that, Greg and I, when we wrote the script for Junior Braves, we were coming from a screenplay and a teleplay background, and the notes from Charlie, our first editor, was all like, you have to think in terms of photographs, not moving images. So each panel, you're describing a still photograph, a still image. So you want to make sure it's an image that conveys what you are wanting from that scene, from that moment. And there's some exceptions where, like, because there's some panels where there's implied movement, like someone doing a tumble or running, where you might see like shadow images or whatever that convey that, oh, this is action that's happening. But most of the time you're describing a single photograph, a single image. And that's just how you have to think about, for the comic book. You're like, okay, the artist is not in my head, so I need to convey this information as clearly as possible. And depending on your relationship with the artist, like Don was saying earlier, how like I had a very basic, and I actually, on my Twitter, I posted an image of the script, and then Don's original pencils, and then the inks, so you can kind of see like from page to from script to page, where usually my panel descriptions are like 1 or 2 sentences, unless for some reason it needs to be more. And that's kind of the interesting thing with comic books, is there's no set format. Do not believe anyone who tells you there's one format, because you will see multiple creators, big name creators. And if you look at like an Alan Moore comic book script, it's a novel, and you can look at like another, you look at like a Michael Bendis script, it's less of a novel. And you can look at some scripts where if it's a writer and an artist who have worked together enough, there's just shorthand. Like, I know what this is going to look like. Who works with Frank Quitely all the time? Blanking, but like they've worked together for decades at this point, so their scripts are very simple, because like I know how he's going to draw this, and he knows how I want it drawn. So there's no set rules, other than conveying the information as clearly as possible. And that's the important thing, is just making sure that whoever is reading that script understands what you're going for. And that's what you just gotta hope you're able to do, because in some cases you have a straight line of communication with your artist. Like, I can call Don at any time, and Don can call me, and we can talk it out. I've also had situations where like I've had no contact with the artist, or very little contact with the artist, and sometimes it leads to issues. I'll say that roller derby anthology story, I had no contact with the artist, and the editor came back and was like, hey, can you adjust your script to fit the art, because the art doesn't necessarily fit your script. And I had to rewrite my story based on what the artist turned in, because however that artist interpreted my script was not was not enough
Not
to
on
where
the
the
same
letterer
page.
the letterer was like, I don't know what is supposed to, these bubbles don't make any sense in this panel as the way the artist drew it. So I had to adapt. And it's weird. The comics are absolutely collaborative, and in some cases it involves like half a dozen people even just to create the thing. And sometimes like some people do it all themselves, and those people are blessed and lucky, but they're also, it's entirely on them. That's something to shoulder.
That's I think it's probably more common in manga, where it's written and drawn by the same dude or girl who's doing it, and it's like, what? Because that's not really the case in American comics necessarily. Sometimes it is, but like you said, those people are clearly blessed to be able to do both of them, with any level of skill. So
Yeah, I think Michael's dead on, especially coming from like the artist perspective and having worked with people who are screenwriters. Sometimes they'll hand you their script and it's like, standard like 120, 200 page script. Like I had a team I was working with on spec for a minute and they were fantastic, but I had to show them, hey, your first 4 pages of your script is 16 pages of comics because you're not focused on the moment. So it's understanding exactly what Mike said. It's like looking at a photograph. Comics are about the moment in the scene, in the panel. Sometimes not even about the moment. Sometimes it's about an object on the table, for example. So it's all about what you want to concentrate on to move your story forward. Where, as in a script for any sort of teleplay, you have the luxury of having that scene play out. And they always say that the scene of a page is equivalent to about a minute, right? I don't know if you guys have heard that.
I've heard that, yes.
Yeah, so that's what they tell you. Whereas in one page of that script, it could be any number of moments. Like if an artist looks at it and you trust that artist to break it down, all of a sudden you could have 3 or 4 pages or even more just based on your 1 page of script.
Sweet. It's awesome. Like, I love hearing about all this stuff. So,
right.
That's me. As the comic
I came here for the wrestling.
I know you. I know. That's why I brought you here. The wrestling, the derby.
This is such a great conversation. Thank you so much once again, guys, for having us on.
Thank you for getting us all together at a time that worked for everybody.
Yeah.
Because aren't you still working night, State?
Was that to Nate?
Yeah, that was to Nate. Aren't you still working nights, Nate?
No, I'm on days.
Oh, you're back to days?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I got off just in time to start the show, and then
Nice.
we'll be wrapping up. I'll be going right into dinner time.
Awesome. Well, that's gonna work good.
And I'm unemployed, so I have all the time during the day that is needed.
Oh.
So Don mentioned that you recently moved up north here, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
My wife got a job up here, and so she moved in December because I needed her to start kind of mid-December, and I moved up at the beginning of January. So now we've been here for a few months, and
Nice.
still looking for a day job. If anyone knows anyone looking for anyone hiring.
Well, I don't, even though I am up here. But
just saying, museum, arts, nonprofit work, like making comics ain't cheap, man.
Yeah.
Right.
I bet. I'm trying to think if there's any comic book related questions. Like I feel like we covered Battle Grapple Rebel pretty thoroughly without spoiling the comic.
Yeah. Well, come check out the tiers too. We got some fantastic stuff.
Pimp some more.
Yeah. So find us at battlegrapplerebel.com. As we've said before, the comic is fully funded. We are, last I checked, we were like 13 backers away from getting the book color. We're trying to hit 100 backers. We're trying to hit the 3,000K mark. We're actually over $2,700 right now. And we appreciate any help. So every dollar counts. So, please come on, pledge, even if it's just $1. After you pledge, do us a favor, go back into the comment section because that will be open for you as a backer. And you can leave a comment that'll help Kickstarter know that you like the project, like what we're doing with it, and we'd love to see it made, even though it's already on track to be made. And yeah, we unfortunately we had a backer drop out. We had this amazing tier where Michael and Dave are going to do custom figures of backers as battle grapplers. And, circumstances change. We get that. Sometimes, you're a backer and things change in your life and you have to adjust your amount or even like pull out, and that's okay. But that opened up a slot for somebody to get a custom action figure made.
Nice.
And that's our big ticket tier because it's a customized piece of 3D physical art that you can handle. Dave is an amazing customizer. I'm decent, but
I heard
Dave and I are
modest.
gonna. Yeah, sometimes when I put the work in, and I'm going to put the work in on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can give us all the details. You pick the scale of the action figure, and give us the details that you want.
Like,
I want life size.
I was gonna say within reason, right?
We're gonna basically you get 6-inch scale or 3 3/4 inch scale. Those are the
Okay.
two scales you can choose from.
Two
So
standards. All right.
you have like standard like Marvel Legends size, or you get like old school
Yeah.
Star Wars size. Yeah, and we make it for you and we'll ship it out. But yeah, that is there's one spot left for that. If there's any action figure fans, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Then let's see, there's the get your face in the crowd level, right?
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah, you can get drawn onto the comic book cover. So if you go to the campaign page, you'll see the comic book cover, and it's just a work in progress. I've only thrown flats in and some space holders, and then there's a ton of negative space behind our protagonist and antagonist. Antagonist, I don't know if we can call Stellar an antagonist.
Rival. We'll say
Rival. All right, there you go. So Spin is in the front, all bruised up with his knuckles bloody. And yeah, we're going to draw 5 lucky backers into there. So we have 1 currently. Still space is open for 4 more. And then other things include, I believe, trading cards. There's a whole set of trading cards that's really fun. Stickers and digital and physical copies of the book. So tag on in and help push us over.
Man, I'm gonna throw some shade over at Starlight. Some of your guys' tiers sound a little bit better.
We have the alternate cover by Brett.
Who worked on Southland Tales. That's insane. Yeah. Eisner nominated Southland Tales.
And it's funny. And Brett and I are from the same hometown in Montana. Like weird small circles here.
Really? I did not know that. That's nuts.
Yeah, the way we found out is at Emerald City Comic Con a few years ago.
Yeah.
Some elderly, not like elderly, but an older couple came by my table. And they're talking like, oh, we're here visiting my son. I was like, oh, where are you from? Like, oh, we're from this little town in Montana. I was like, oh, I'm from Great Falls. And they're like, we're from Great Falls. I was like, oh, wow, small world. Well, who's your son? Oh, Brett Widelli. I was like, I know Brett. Like, bizarre small town coincidences there.
Small world. Yeah, but we got a lot of fun things happening in addition to having just a fun comic. So please come join us on that. And then, you know what? It's been amazing talking to you guys because I feel like we've also just discussed a lot of things that don't come to light often as, creators, like in terms of being at a convention table and what it takes to do that, or being a comic book creator and what it takes to be a writer or an artist. So, those are things people get to hear a lot about.
Thanks. Yeah. I've just had an odd circumstance of life. I've run tables at Comic Cons for a friend of mine's who are trying to do some product or another. I know about behind the scenes at Comic Cons. Like I said, I have a friend. If you guys have heard of RenCon, or I think it's called King Kong now. My friend is the owner of that convention.
Okay.
And it has had its ups and downs over the years. If you've ever been to them, won't get into any behind the scenes drama on that one. But and I've I'm a author myself, so I like to look at that particular aspect, and I appreciate art. Obviously, reading tons of comic books and realizing, at some point, if you're of some modicum of intelligence, you must realize like, oh yeah, there's this art component to the words and the bubbles, like it doesn't just like happen, and having talked to various artists over the years, and just for my own novella and shelved novel, which is a whole other thing, having dealt with artists, like it is awesome to talk to working artists who are actually like, not to put down the other people that I've talked to in the past, but like professional about it, because it's been my experience that there's like the artists that are like artists, and then there's the artists who are like, yeah, get it done, next project, let's move it on, because it's like, there's so many different levels to producing the stuff that you guys are producing that a lot of people don't care about. And it's like, yo, this takes work, everybody. Like pay attention to these creators, to you guys. Like just because it's on Kickstarter doesn't mean that there's not like thousands of hours of work put into this, because it's not all just open word open Photoshop, make comic.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not how it works
Run
at
comic
all.
book basic program, and it just draws itself.
You know,
Yeah.
it's scary that you guys talk about that because they are developing AI
Yeah.
apps that do art, and people are like spoiled by filters nowadays, and they're just like, oh, you can just throw a filter on it, and people have seen fumetti, like the Italian style comics, where we see photos in place of art.
Sure.
But the thing, like what Michael was saying, it's like there's no one way to make comics,
Sure.
and I always joke, there's also no one art style that will make an awesome comic because XKCD is a comic with just stick figures, and it's hilarious, and it has achieved fame beyond my imagination. Like I could not comprehend how famous that comic is in terms of like its meme quality and like how well known it is. So if you're out there, you're looking to make comics. Honestly, the secret I always joke about to making comics, I'll just spill it, is just to make the comic and to get it out there. And once you do that, you get to see how time consuming and how difficult it can be, but also how rewarding and how fulfilling it is. It's an incredible experience. And like I said, for people to come up to Michael or me or anybody out there making comics and just to enjoy what we do, that says a lot, and that means a lot to us, and we appreciate that.
Absolutely. Some of my greatest memories from this industry is like fans coming up and saying that they liked the book.
Yeah.
I saw at one convention that was not going great. A teacher came up and bought it for her classroom. I was like, okay, great. And then she came back like an hour later, and she said, I just sat down and read this, and this is very good. This is very good. You should be very proud of yourself. And I was like, yes, ma'am, I am. Thank you. It was that sweet, like that. She's like a second grade teacher.
Yeah.
So she had that like sweetness to her compliment, and that just made my day. I still like think about that.
Gosh. A question that just popped into my head because I remember off air of podcasts talking to Greg about your Junior Braves book and Starlight, and Greg is like, he's so outspoken, but like in my experience talking to him about the actual like product, like the only thing he wants to know is like, did you like it or not? Like I don't want to know anything else, like I don't want to know any feedback or whatever. Are you the same way? Because I'm kind of getting that you're probably not.
Oh, I'm absolutely not the same way. I want to hear everything. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, I never want to hear a word out of your mouth ever.
If you did like it, I want you to tweet at me and just tag me on social media a bunch so I get the engagement.
Fair enough. That is definitely always important. Well, I think we are pretty much out of time here. One more round of pimping for you guys' personal websites and projects and stuff, and then tell the folks here to back your stuff, and we'll close this out.
All right, Michael, you want to do the honors to start us off?
Yeah, I'll start us off. All right, so first of all, number one, you go to battlegrapplerebel.com. You open that webpage and you look at this great thing. You're like, oh, this comic book sounds awesome. And there's a button on there. It's like back this project. You're going to click on that button, and then you're going to select your tier, and you're going to select the tier that works out best for you. I hope it's one of the higher tiered ones because money is good, and you won't be disappointed. It's a great comic, Battle Grapple Rebel, sci-fi pro wrestling. You will believe a wrestler can change the galaxy. Number two, go to my website, buymichaeltanner.com. That's BYMichaelTanner.com, where I have a web store where you can BUY Michael Tanner comic books. You can get Junior Braves there. You can get Orcs in Space. I believe I just have issue 1 and 2 on there right now, but I'm going to add volume 1 and volume 2 up there for sale. I'm doing a huge sale right now. It's free shipping in the US. I got a lot of stock. I just moved. I could use some empty boxes. So buy some comic books from me. If you don't want to buy it from my web store. Number 3, Orcs in Space Volume 2 just came out this past week. Go to your local comic book store. There's probably someone working behind the counter. You're going to stick your finger in their face, and you're going to say, hey, do you have Orcs in Space Volume 2? And if they say yes, you're going to be like, awesome, I want to buy it right now. And if they say no, you say, listen, you're going to order Orcs in Space Volume 2, or I'm going to start shopping at another store. And then you're going to shake your fist. You got to shake your fist. That's the way to do it. And they'll be like, okay, we'll order Orcs in Space Volume 2. And tell them also to order Volume 1 if you don't have that already. They can do that. And then after you've read Volumes 1 and Volumes 2 of Orcs in Space, you're going to go to Comixology and you're going to read the last 4 issues of the series digitally, because there's a paper shortage and the last 4 issues are only coming out digitally. And then volume 3, a collected volume, will be printed in the fall, and you're going to buy that one too, because you're going to love Orcs in Space so much. Those are the 3 things I ask of you. Battle Grapple Rebel on Kickstarter right now, buymichaeltanner.com, and Orcs in Space. There you go.
No Junior Braves?
Junior, well, I assume everyone owns Junior Braves 1 and 2. Volume 2 came out like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
now. Volume 3 is coming out sometime.
Oh, okay.
And,
All right.
All right. Fair enough.
And if you head to your local comic shop, use the word please, because they like that, I heard.
No, the shake fist. You got to shake the fist.
Say please. I'm just saying. Shake the fist and say please.
They get the please and the thank you once they order it for you. That's what.
Oh, well, there you go. That's a good point. Anything else? Are you doing any shows?
Yes.
He's like, thank you.
Thank you, Don. If you're going to be in LA in the month of June, I will be in LA June 11th at Ronin Expo, which is an anime convention in Little Tokyo. But I'm going to be there for a panel called Unnecessary Debates. It's kind of a big deal. I don't want to say we're filming it for something special, but we are filming it. And you should be in the audience for it. Ronin Expo, June 11th. And that's
I'm going out of town. Dang it.
Good. Gosh dang it. Gosh dang it.
It's the day before my birthday, and I typically avoid California anyway.
Well, I believe I'll also be at SummerCon up in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area.
Like it seems like fucking everybody is going to be at SummerCon this year.
Every celebrity ever
what
born.
What the hell?
Don't get me started. I'm glad we're wrapping up the show because I can talk about the amount of money convention spend on celebrities being the grossest part of the convention world. But anyway, Don, over to you.
My last name is Nguyen. It is spelled N as in Nancy, G-U-Y, like the word guy. E as in Eddie, N as Nancy. Is the most common Vietnamese last name. 60 to 75% of us, I believe, have that last name. And you can find me on all social media as Winging It, which is you just take Nguyen, add an I-N-G-I-T to that. And that is trademarked. So yeah, come find me at Winning It on most social media platforms. Yes. You can find my comic Pablo the Gorrilla on my website, which is winningit.com. Awesome. Like I said, it features a variant covered by 2-time Eisner winner Dustin Nguyen. Shout out to Dustin. He is an amazing creator and such an awesome guy. And I've been I am a part of 16 Kickstarters, including Battle Grapple right now. I hope you'll come tag in and put us over. Actually, I guess technically we're already over, but we'd love to get the book colored, and we need, as far as I know, just 13 more backers to have that done. So like I said, all it takes is just $1 and a share, and that would be fantastic. The other book I'm on is called Cannibals on Mars. If you just punch that into the search box on Kickstarter, you'll be able to find that too. The shows that I will be a part of, I'm part of Free Comic Book Day. If anybody is in the LA area, Saturday the 7th, that's the first Free Comic Book Day event that I'll be a part of. I'll be at Heidi Ho Comics in Santa Monica. The day after that, Sunday, I'll be a part of the Comic Bugs Free Comic Book Day weekend event down in Culver City. And then the week after that, I'll be at Collector's Paradise in Pasadena. In terms of cons, I'll be at Comic-Con Ontario Revolution, which I believe is May 21st through the 22nd. That is in Ontario, California, not Canada. And then I have Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina in June. San Diego Comic-Con, please come find me. In July, I'll be tabling next to the amazing Carl Altstetter, who's done a lot of work with Rob Liefeld back in the day with his studios, and David Mack, who you all may know as the co-creator of Echo from Daredevil, as well as an amazing painter and the creator of Kabuki. And then after that is Rose City Comic-Con in Portland, and then September, and then October is Baltimore Comic-Con. If you're on the East Coast, that's my other East Coast show, and then probably LA Comic-Con in December. And I believe that's about it. And then I did finish a new set for Upper Deck and Marvel in March last month. So I hope to be able to do an art drop for that in the fall. So hopefully around September, we'll be able to drop that.
Sweet.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. You have any closing comments, Nate?
No, other than
Not gonna hit
I'm
your,
low
not,
rent Josh Brolin.
not gonna hit your stupid button.
No,
No stupid button for the guests?
no
Okay.
stupid.
All right.
Fine.
Yay!
That's the one he loves.
He'll do this in the middle of the show. I'll be talking and I hate it so much.
Very Zoo Crew.
All right. And with that, get forked. Thank you for listening to a Dynamic Works production podcast. You can find our podcast at www.dynamicworksproductions.com. Feel free to email us at dynamicworks@mac.com.
This is Dominic Armato, the voice of Guybrush Threepwood, and you're listening to a Dynamic Works production podcast.
The Citadel, Arrival, is the first installment in a series of epic science fiction short stories reminiscent of the Pulp Fiction style. It's a fast-paced story that will take you through twists and turns that you will not expect, until they are thrust upon you with all the force, excitement, and chaos of a plasma cannon blast. The story follows Katarl, a nobody cog in the working wheels of a futuristic society run completely by Megacorp, a corporation that carefully runs and manages the lives of the people living under its sphere of power. On one of Katarl's few and far between days off from work, an outing he had hoped would be fun and relaxing turns into an explosive adventure that drags him kicking and screaming into situations and challenges that will make him question every aspect of his life. Watch this colorful tapestry unfurl as Katarl and his newfound allies find their way through this classic, yet oddly surprising tale of good and evil, where nothing is quite what it appears to be. That's The Citadel, Arrival by author Tim K.A. Trotter, available right now on Amazon Kindle Store and iTunes iBookstore for only $2.99.
Jello?
Hey there.
Nope, I'm not outputting to the right device.
Oh, I hear you just fine.
I know you do.
Oh, okay.
You're coming through my speakers, but not my board.
Good.
Give me a sec. That's not the right app. More audio video settings.
Well, here's hoping my setup holds together. Because guess what my Mac gave me a warning of before we started?
Cardful?
No.
Okay.
User data might be corrupted. Please restore from backup.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Actually was doing some stuff to get it running. So hopefully we're good. I hope we're good.
Okay, looks like everything's good on my end as far as pulling everyone's audio in and my own. I'm not crackly or anything.
Oh no, you're fantastic.
Of course I am.
Okay.
Herb.
I need your humor today.
That was unfortunate. You said you need my what?
I need your what? Oh, your good-natured humor today.
Oh, well, I've got plenty of that.
I was handling a break-in at the drop of a hat up north in Seattle. And by the skin of my teeth, I happened to have a part that was like the exact part to fix it. Like a used part. I was like, holy cow, how fortuitous. And I was feeling all good about myself fixing it and whatnot. And then the customer was like screaming at me over the phone on my drive home, like, what the hell? This is so expensive. And I'm like, I don't live in Seattle. We charge portal to portal. There's a part, and minimum is an hour. So yeah, that's about,
Right. I'm sorry you got broken into.
I'm like, I also like fixed it today, and you're waiting
Right.
2 days for the glass to be fixed. So I don't understand, like.
And again, I'm sorry you got broken into. That's for your insurance to handle.
Indeed.
It's a shame. But them's the breaks.
Yeah.
What's going on in the chat here?
I'm just texting
Oh, okay.
all the things, since I don't have other means of communicating with them.
Yeah, I know Don had sent a link.
Yeah,
For-
early. Like a
Yeah.
week ago.
No. Like a half hour ago or so.
Mike sent a link. And now we're connected with Mike.
Oh.
Or
Okay.
Michael. I don't know how he likes to be called. I've never talked to these folks before.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
Oh,
we've
he's
got
joining
another
us on
smiling
video.
face.
Ah, there we go.
There we go. All right.
And
We have a
Hello.
forehead. We have a face.
Hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yep.
Don? Excellent.
Okay, cool.
is there one other person or is this it?
No, this is it.
I think this is it.
These are the two people.
Okay.
We have two.
The
they
two
have
most
two.
important.
Why was I seeing something that said Greg?
So Greg Smith, remember all the other guests that I've done with
Mhm.
comic books, and then his partner Travis on another comic book. Greg's the one who kind of is the conjoiner of all
Okay.
of the parties
Okay.
involved.
Cool. I saw other names and I'm like, well, these aren't the two names that I saw, but okay.
Well, these are the two names, but
Yes.
Greg was in that the group chat on Twitter
Yes.
trying to unify everyone. Because I think Travis was trying to get everybody together, and then, according to Greg, something happened, as does with Travis, that prevented his hands-onness or something.
Well, in general with life.
Yeah,
Fair
stuff
enough.
happens.
Fair enough. All right, how's everybody's levels look on your end, Nate?
Everyone's coming through the same levels on my end, so
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
remember I got one feed for everyone and then myself.
Very good. And then
So-
of Mike and Don, you guys said you have local records happening as well?
Yeah, so I can pull up OBS and record from that. So I'll just go ahead and do that.
That would be fantastic.
And, yeah,
Cool.
and I
Okay.
can record an Audacity track.
That
Okay.
works as
Yeah,
well.
if it's just for your guys' stuff, that'd be fantastic. Then I'll have nice clean for everybody. We've got backups rolling on Skype, and then my program over here, Audio Hijack, in case
Right.
somebody's local is bad.
And I'm sure you can handle the MP4 format that Don will be sending you.
I can handle any format that
Right.
people send me.
Perfect.
So yeah. All right. Well, I'm Tim K. Trotter. I don't know everybody's arrangement on the screen. Down from me is my co-host Nate Fu. Obviously, we have Michael Tanner, and then Don, whose last name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce because I'm
Dwayne?
sure I will butcher it.
It's win, just like
Yeah.
winning a game.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I can roll with that.
Yeah.
So-
Sometimes I hear it with the N, sometimes I hear it without, but it's usually just when or Nguyen.
Yeah.
So
Enough.
it's never Nugyen.
Nope. I've been called that.
I am sure.
Fair enough. All right, cool. So, so what or how we usually do it here on Fork is, as I said before, we have two rules. We don't talk religion, we don't talk politics, because that keeps everything free and breezy. Other than that, anything else goes. If you want to swear, whatever, that's fine.
So how are we
Uh,
supposed to talk about the Iron Sheik and the Bolsheviks if we don't get into politics?
True.
Anyways,
I get it. No party politics. As
yes.
no politics still is politics.
Sure. So what usually happens once we start rolling, I will say 3, 2, 1, and then very loudly yell "cut in." And we'll just use that as the marker for the rest of the tracks. What we'll
or chicken nuggets or party foul or whatever you want to yell. Just give them a good spike.
Yeah. So you two, Mike and Don, if you want to yell something as well when I yell it, that would be fantastic. So that we can get it all lined up. We'll then do a pause. So then we have nice clean break on the audio forms. Then I'll do introduction, blah, blah, blah. Welcome to the show. And as always, and then special guests. And do you want me to introduce you guys, or do you guys want to introduce yourselves? How do you want to roll it?
You can introduce us. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Okay, very good. And then since we're doing a guest show, not our usual show, I'll probably just at that point turn whatever your selling spiel is for your project. Since who better to sell it than the people making it? And then we'll go into it from there. Mike, I'm loosely familiar with you as a writer due to Junior Braves.
Mm-hmm.
Don, I am not familiar with at all, other than the fact that you sound very friendly on Twitter.
Oh, thank you. I can send you over a super quick reader of Pablo the Gorrilla if you like.
Sure.
And I'm also, if you go to my website, you can actually see just a ton of my artwork. I'm also a Marvel Upper Deck sketch card artist.
Oh, nice. Right on.
Yeah.
Sweet. There will be plenty of time for pimping and shilling of websites. We can do that also in the beginning of stuff when you guys are doing introductions, and then also when we close out the show as well for all of that stuff. And I apologize for my neighbor's dogs because they suck.
You will 100% hear my dogs at some point during this.
Yeah, my dog too, probably.
And maybe my children.
Fair enough. Lots of stuff going on.
We're used to doing this late at night when everyone's already asleep. So
this is true. And yet my neighbor's dogs would still be out.
Mm-hmm. All right. If anyone needs a libation, go get one now.
Gonna pop some links in here for you guys.
All right.
Okay.
But it wants to do some light reading.
Awesome.
Okay.
Here. Good on that.
And
right.
there goes my lighting, because right website.
Well, just don't kick your
Oh,
kick your
yes.
desktop.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep rolling if that happens, by the way, Nate.
Yes.
So you know he's got a problem where if he bumps his desk just the right way, his graphics card dislodges and he'll lose his screen. But everything will be okay.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So it's a real fun thing to happen while you're in the middle of recording a podcast.
Oh man.
Yeah,
So is it like a loose PCI slot? What's the deal?
Just the new 30 series graphics cards are just so massive.
Oh yeah.
And the case I have doesn't have one of those braces on it that you can slide the back of the card into. So if I bump it the wrong way, it just just enough that it doesn't shut down the computer, but it turns off all the video.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, always fun.
Something to keep in mind.
Right? if I get animated and pound the desk, it's all over for me.
Yeah, don't do that. Just don't do it.
It's like,
But why not?
yeah, put it on like shock absorbing foam risers.
I thought, I took everything apart, thought I got it. I just got to
Yeah.
go invest in a brace. So
Yeah.
it goes.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I'm ready to roll. Are you gentlemen ready to roll and/or are rolling at present?
I'm ready.
Yeah, let me get a cough drop in.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, cut in.
Cut in.
Robots.
Huzzah!